Train is the third game in this particular series that I call The Mechanic is the Message. And what I wanted to see is, can board games capture and express difficult emotion like a painting or like music? Or I guess if we think of great photographs, if just in your head you're thinking about them, odds are that a few of those will be about really difficult subject matter. But yet when we think of games, the first thing we think is it's got to be super fun and happy, or it's got to be, incite immediate fear, in the case of a first-person shooter. So I was just, at the time I was teaching, and I was very interested in this question, can games do that? So I made a game for my daughter about the slave trade to teach her about that, and then I made the next game was about my family's history, Irish, so I made a game about the Cromwellian invasion of Ireland, and then I wanted to make 6 games about this. And I figure if you're going to make 6 games about difficult experiences, and if you don't touch on the most difficult human experience of them all, it would be cheating. The Train is about a difficult topic, the most difficult topic in terms of history, I would say. It's the Holocaust. So the design process, oh God, for these games is nothing like working on a digital game, at least for me. Train, the first, I don't know, it took me 9 months to build the game from beginning to end. And during that time, every day I would spend, I did a ton of research, obviously. I did a ton of research to make these games. But more personally, I spent time with this single picture every single day, anywhere from 45 minutes to sometimes 2 hours. And it was of these 2 little kids who a mother had pinned the yellow star on them. And it was, the star was neat as could be. And so I would try to think, like, as a mom of 3, I was trying to put myself into her shoes. And I understand I'm never even going to get close to in her shoes. But I wanted every day to feel like I had an attachment to those kids, that I knew that photograph inside and out, that I could think about how I would feel if my own kids were going through something as horrifying as that. But yet I, as their mother, am trying to keep their world somehow together. So that is certainly different than a traditional game design. I've been fortunate since that time to talk with a ton of people. I mean, this is a very recent event, so on the one hand, in building this game, I'm surprised sometimes when people ask me questions like, why the broken glass? And they don't know why, why the window is smashed, or why 6? What's the number? Why 6 million points in the game? And so there's numbers from an event that happened in the 1940s. It's not that long ago, right? But yet, it seems to not be recent memory anymore, and that is surprising to me. And so I guess I'm glad that I was able to play some tiny part in keeping that memory alive, so that people don't forget just how bad humanity can be.
So you were talking about your own very personal approach to it and your relationship to the characters in the game. What do you think in terms of responsibility for a game designer about being accurate and being authentic and creating a story world that is playable in the end?
So Train, it's interesting because I really can't claim credit for its design, although I am its designer. In looking at these tragedies, there's systems in there, and so I just have to find the system and then find a way to artistically represent the system and to turn that system into rules. So I didn't invent putting humans in boxcars to send them to their extermination, thank goodness. But the system is there, and so in all these games I'm just looking for the system, and then it's up to me to determine how to represent it. That said, Train sometimes provokes very strong emotional reactions. I've had people walk up to the typewriter and say some very strong words. I don't know whether I could swear or not. So, and these are people who are incredibly, and the one I'm thinking of, it was this gentleman who's wearing a suit and a tie. He's incredibly proper. I worked with him and never would swear. And the words and the anger that it immediately provoked, it wasn't like it simmered. He saw it and it was there. And what he said was visceral and very out of character. I've had people just walk up to it and cry. Because everything in the game, there's nothing that you can point to that is not representative of the Holocaust. Everything is there for a reason. So it's not uncommon for people to walk up to the game and just stand there and cry, or when they finish the game to experience, especially if they didn't know, right, which is the larger question Train is trying to ask. Will human beings blindly follow the rules without even knowing the end? And the answer is yes, in fact, they will. And then even when you know what's happening, will you allow it to happen? Like everybody who's standing around watching the game, right? They're all complicit in this. I mean, we human beings watch these atrocities happen, and we don't do anything about it. In fact, in this particular playthrough that's happening behind me, one of the people who's watching the game said, "No, you have to follow the rules," and effectively just became part of the SS. And no, you have to follow the rules. And in fact, no, there were people saved during the Holocaust because people, in fact, did not follow the rules. So the responsibility that comes with it is when it provokes these incredibly strong emotions, I have to receive them, And to be honest with you, even though it's a very long day of Train is emotionally draining, but it's also emotionally gratifying and profound because I've heard stories about, oh my goodness, I've heard stories about people's grandfathers, people's mothers, children. I mean, like personal experiences that people will just come and tell you when they see the game. These are things I never would have known about, and just the depth of the experience people have and the depth of the wounds that people still carry around. Just profound, it's an incredible gift to be able to hear people and to be able to connect with people to hear those things.
You were just talking about the game evoking very strong emotions. So, is your basic decision to make a board game out of a topic like this instead of a digital game based on the decision that people have to confront each other with it and have to have a dialogue, or do you think digital games can do something like this as well?
I don't know. I mean, Floyd and Planetfall certainly made people cry. With Train, it's non-digital because there are things that happen with Train that could not happen in a digital game. There are, I guess you'll call it procedural gaps in the rules, where in a traditional board game we might call it rules lawyering. Like, wait a minute, this isn't entirely clear. What am I supposed to do? And those are there intentionally. I want to explore that full possibility space of the game. What if it's not prohibited? How people worked within the rules and around the rules during the Holocaust. And so for me, this is important. It was the only way to make this. And the rules for the Holocaust didn't come out of a typewriter. They didn't come out of somebody's keyboard attached to a terminal. They came out of a typewriter. One of those typewriters, in fact. So I don't know how this game could have been represented that way. That said, there have been many games, many art games that have been made that are phenomenally powerful. My husband, this is not an art game, but when we're talking about Train, when I'm talking about Train, he's often with me, and he made a game called Wolfenstein. And I've heard many people, and at first I didn't really get it, when we were invited to speak about our Holocaust works, and I thought, what? I didn't know what they were referring to, and then, as soon as I thought, huh? I immediately knew which game they were referring to. And he's heard from, oh my goodness, dozens and dozens of people at this point in time who, as Jewish people, when they were younger and they played Wolfenstein, it was a catharsis for them because you're just going through that game and blowing away Nazis. And it was an absolute, that's my favorite game. Thanks so much for making that. And again, I don't think we would have heard that same feedback if we had been in the same space as Train, because it attracts sometimes a particular. A certain group of people will come to see it. Well, many groups of people will come to see it, but for different reasons.
Well, thanks a lot. And I'm really curious about watching people play the game a little further.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.